Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm John, and just remember, Arnold is numero uno.
I mean, it's terrific, right?
Today, we are going to resume my regular content. I think I said I was going to be making a new video about a month ago. It's fine. Don't worry about that. We're not here to talk about that. We got some Neo Geo to discuss today. This is the MVSX, and I have a thing or two to say about it. Some of it good, some of it bad, and I made a whole bunch of mods to this thing, and we're going to get into each of them and sort of discuss the pros and cons of this cabinet all together. So let's get into it. Okay, so let me start by saying that I never really had any love for the Neo Geo. It's one of those things that I never knew a single human being that had one of them. The Neo Geo was sort of like the TurboGrafx 16 in that it was one of those consoles that you knew existed because you read about them in like EGM or, any other gaming magazine back in the day, but it was like a rarity if you knew anyone that actually had them. I was familiar with the Neo Geo in the arcade, and I played a ton of Metal Slug on there, which is honestly the primary reason I got this thing. But as a home console, it's something that I never grew up with. I never had the chance to play. And any of the ports for Neo Geo games that I did get to play were like, on the Genesis or the Super Nintendo. Or, even occasionally I had a friend who had a 3DO, and we played like Samurai Showdown on the 3DO back in the day. But now that I had the chance to get my hands on one of these, the allure of this really was the fact that it has like 50 games on it. This thing is like loaded. There are some differences as far as like build quality goes with this versus like an arcade 1-up. Some good, some not so good. One of the things to its credit on this machine is the external construction, like the riser and stuff. It's made out of like a pretty solid wood. It's got some heft to it. The riser on this thing is multi-adjustable, which the first time I put it together, I made it so that the riser was on the higher setting, and when I had it all set up with the cabinet on top of the riser, it was just too tall for me. I actually had to take it down and put it onto its regular setting. But this thing's very big. It stands a little bit taller than your average arcade 1-up. It's not as deep, so that makes for the experience if you're playing on like a carpet or something like that, like I am, where moving around, like the cabinet will actually move a little bit. It's not as like sturdy as a 1-up because it doesn't have that depth, like it can't go back as far, so it just doesn't have as much like area to distribute weight. So it moves around a little bit. It's not terrible, but it does move around a little bit. Oddly enough, it's just as wide as a control deck on the 1-up, but it's so much worse as far as having space to play. I really don't like the control deck on this thing at all, honestly. And I'm not even talking about the mediocrity of like the buttons and the sticks, which are super mediocre, very clicky, very loud, and like they don't have the best range of motion, especially for the fighting games. Like the sticks on this thing with the fighting games are it's kind of hard to pull off some of those moves. But the control panel in general, big hands. So my hand is just, there's no comfortable spot for me with the joystick and the very large extruding edge of the control deck on this thing. Always bumping into it. Super uncomfortable. It's not I can't imagine two people on this thing, honestly. It's very strange that for something that has the same like width as a 1-up deck, how vastly different they are. And it makes me rethink any complaints I've ever had about like a 1-up deck being too wide. I've always felt they were pretty decent, especially, again, for big hands guy over here. But this is rough, this thing. Some other things that I haven't been a big fan of. When I first got this, it had a whole string of dead pixels on it on the monitor. Not even like one or two dead pixels, but like a whole row was just out. So I had to get in touch with customer service. Customer service didn't really get back in touch with me. I had to I tried to hit them up on their Facebook page. The person on their Facebook page put me through to customer service, and then customer service got in touch with me. So it worked out, but that took like a week. And then I had to run some tests, send them some stuff, and they determined that it was the monitor. They sent me a new monitor. That took like a week and a half. You know, I got the monitor installed, and then they send you like a video on how to install it, because these things come pre-assembled. You get the cabinet itself is like comes in like two different parts. So like the console unit itself is already put together, and then it comes with that riser and then the extender. So I got the combo kit. It's got a riser, the extender base, and then the console on the top. So those two things you have to put together, but the console itself is already put together. So you have to take the console apart, which is kind of a pain, honestly. Like that thing, I don't feel like I've had to take it apart a couple of times now, and I don't know that it would survive another one. It just feels a little chintzy, and getting the monitor out was kind of a pain. And when I did get the monitor back together and turned it on, I just wound up with like a big bright white screen. And I was contacting them. I was like, "What's going on?" And it turns out I had like a wire backwards when I put it back together, because they give you a video, like a cell phone video of them, like a guy going through the process, which is handy, but also not handy. It's very strange. So I wound up, just switching that wire over, and now it works. But the monitor also isn't great. Like there's some serious like light blooming that happens on the bottom of it. So it's like the monitor's not incredible. So I feel like I'm talking a lot of trash about this thing. I want to point out the fact that this is honestly like one of my favorite cabinets in my arcade. This thing gets a lot of play, and for all of its faults, I really do love it, and I do play it quite a bit. Even with the control deck that kills my hand, this thing's got some of my favorite games on there, and the main reason I bought this thing in general was for Metal Slug.
Mission 1, start.
I bought this essentially for the Metal Slug series, and also Samurai Showdown. But upon revisiting Samurai Showdown, it turns out I don't like Samurai Showdown very much. Used to love it as a kid. Didn't age very well for me. But having 6 Metal Slug games here, totally worth it. Plus, there was a game on here that I discovered that I'd never heard of called Shock Troopers, and that is amazing. I've been playing that so much. So the controls take a little getting used to, because you sort of have to like let go of your weapon, move, find your direction you want to aim, and then hit your weapon again. So it takes a little getting used to, as do the controls on this thing in general. So let me just point out how weird this thing is to set up. So it's like to get into a game, you have to hit the red B button, but then you have to hit the option button to change your controls every time you play it. And even if you save it, it doesn't save it by the time it starts up again. So you don't exit. Each time you play this, you have to save and go back to the main menu and trying to find the perfect control. Each time you play this, you have to select credits going, and then trying to find the perfect control scheme if you're going to play a fighting game.
I'm good, Big Dan.
But there's like a learning curve with this thing that's going to take a little while to figure out. But once you do actually manage to get into a game and get your options set, it's awesome. Now, I have made some modifications to this, and we are going to have a guest on in a few minutes. I'm going to have on ShelbyRatz, my buddy Lyle, who does all of my coin doors. If you've watched my channel before, you know I love my light-up coin doors. He does a 3D printed one, and for this cabinet specifically, I was very excited about this, and I'll get into it more, but I have a one-of-a-kind light-up coin door for this cabinet. Can't get them anywhere else. Lyle has them, and we're going to get into that a little bit more. But some of the other modifications I've made to this thing, I replaced the marquee. This is from Szabo, Joe Szabo, and I love it. It's so much better than the original one that came on there. The original had some banding in the red, some print banding. I just wasn't really a fan of it in general. I love this one. It just really pops, like, in the color distribution's great, the light. It's Joe Szabo. You know it's going to be a great looking marquee. The thing's fantastic. I also, with Lyle, managed to swap out the mini coin door that normally sits on this cabinet. So on the actual console portion of the deck, they put this like weird small mini coin door, faux coin door on there for whatever reason. It's just very strange and looks very odd. I wound up getting Lyle to 3D print this really cool MVSX design, and I managed to pop that out of there and install this one, and now I've got like this really cool little custom piece that also hangs out in there. Unfortunately, with this system, I wasn't able to get my usual subwoofer new speaker upgrade combo in there. Everything's jam-packed pretty tight in there. The way that usually works with the Z313 by Logitech, which is what I use for all my other cabinets, it's not the same setup as an arcade one-up, so there's just no way to get that to happen. So I was a little bummed about that, but fortunately the sound on this thing is pretty solid. I've got this next to a couple of my other cabs that have subs and upgraded speakers, and it still manages to stand out, and I can still hear it just fine. I'm really excited to talk about this coin door and the mania that I went through trying to get this made. It came with like this really cool fake coin door on there, but there was no way to really light it up. And I decided to drill a hole in the back of the plastic where the faux buttons are, just to see if like I could take a light up kit from Lyle and put it in there just to sort of feed light through there to make it shine. I did manage to do that. It was like a really weak way of doing it. I didn't go about it the best way, but it worked. It wasn't great. And I just went nuts. Like my brain, like I go insane if I can't figure something out. Like I was up some nights until like 3-4 in the morning, like drawing like designs or looking at like Home Depot or stuff like that for like things I could do to actually make this thing work and get these buttons to light up. And then I was like, oh wait, I have a friend who 3D prints things, and I actually contacted him, and I wound up sending that coin door out, and he fabricated a new one off of those measurements and using his actual standard sort of design, and it looks awesome. The thing is so cool. I'm glad I found the solution because there's nobody out there with a third-party solution for this. ShelbyRatz has them. We'll leave a link to his website in the description below so you can snag one up from him. If you own an MVSX, you are going to want this thing. It's so easy to install. It looks so awesome, and it just powers right into the back of the USB. Super easy. All right, guys, so I think that's going to do it for today. I want to thank Lyle for sponsoring this show. He hooked me up with that coin door, and I could not be happier with the way that turned out. That project meant a lot to me, and I'm glad that it came out as awesome as it did. And if you own one of these, you're definitely going to want one. Snag one up at the link in the description below. It's such a huge difference, and if you're someone who loves their lighted coin doors like I do, you're definitely going to want one. So all things considered, there are some cons to this machine, but I also think that it's just such a good cabinet to have. Like, if you're a fan of Metal Slug, if you're a fan of Samurai Showdown, Art of Fighting, like, there should be something on here for everybody, and enough of those games in that series to justify the purchase alone. Because honestly, like, I've got 6 Metal Slug games. I've got 6 Metal Slug games now, and another bonus game on here. Essentially, that's 7 games that I love and I'm gonna play all the time. And that doesn't include people who come by and like, oh cool, you have Samurai Showdown, I can play all those. So if you're a Neo Geo fan, or if you're just getting into Neo Geo, there is enough variety on this cabinet to make this a definite must-have for your arcade. And making these slight cosmetic adjustments will also get it like that much more to where you want it to be. So I really want to thank you guys for hanging around. I've been making a little bit longer videos lately. I'm trying to be a little bit more consistent. I have some really fun stuff I'm working on right now. I can't tell you what it is, but I'm so excited about it. I'm just waiting on one final piece of this puzzle, and then I'm going to be building something, and I can't wait to share it with you. It's going to be very cool. So more stuff coming soon, probably within, hopefully the 2-week range this time again. I say that, but I think that's a good default, just to say 2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Also, if you like the music that you hear on this channel, check out my buddy 8-Bit Fury. He's a friend of mine that I grew up with, and like, he makes these really awesome synthwave tracks, and I throw a lot of them in here in my videos to use. So if you like what you hear, you can check him out on Spotify. He's also on SoundCloud. There's a link to his website in the description below. Also, if you like what you see here, subscribe, comment, all those things. I love engaging with you guys. I love it when you have questions or you have comments or feedback. It's always awesome, and I love that I don't really get any rowdy miscreants in here. Everyone's really friendly, everyone's very cool, and I love that. I love engaging with you guys, and I love having these conversations. So I'm going to stop talking and get out of here. But thank you guys for stopping by, and I'll see you on the next one.